Okay, thank you very much. Okay. Thank you very much. So welcome to the Town of Rocky Mountain House regular council meeting for May 7th of 2024. I'd like to call this meeting to order. First order of business would be the acknowledgement of Indigenous peoples. The Town of Rocky Mountain House wishes to acknowledge that the land on which we gather is Treaty 6 territory and a traditional meeting ground and home for many Indigenous peoples, including Blackfoot, Cree, Saulteaux, Stoney, and Métis. 3.1, the adoption of the agenda, and I believe that Councillor Hutchinson has an item to add. Councillor Hutchinson.
Thank you. I would like to add item 9.10, the 2024 AB Munis Awards.
Thank you very much. Do we have any discussion on that agenda addition? Seeing none, I'll move forward to the adoption of the agenda. I'm looking for a motion. Councillor Phillips.
Yes, I will make a motion to adopt the agenda as amended.
Thank you very much. All in favor of that motion? And Marley, yes, thank you very much. And that's carried, no opposed. Delegations. This morning I'm very pleased to see that we have a delegation from West Country Family Service with Marina and Dustin, and welcome. Please come to the microphones and I know Marina's very familiar. Just remind you to be heard. We need you to press the button till the red light turns on. And thank you. Generally, we have 10 minutes for the presentation, and no one told me if it was any different today, did we? Okay, and then we have time for questions or comments after, so thank you so much for coming.
Good morning, Mayor, Council, and Administration. Thank you for having us here today. I am joined by my Board Chair, Dustin Bisson. My name is Marina, and I'm the Executive Director for West Country Family Service Association. We are here with our nonprofit organization today that provides several essential programs to fulfill our vision of seeing every senior in our community of Rocky Mountain House and Clearwater County be supported to live safely with grace and dignity in the home of their choosing. Our organization has provided 133,625 services just last year on an individual basis and serve about 287 clients per month. We offer programs such as Meals on Wheels, Lifeline, Home Support, that is light housekeeping and social support, Adopt a Senior, grocery delivery, Adult Day Support program that promotes socialization, respite relief to caregivers, and generally improves quality of life, and that's delivered by healthcare aides. The home care program that offers health and supports care services delivered by certified healthcare aides, and the community access transportation program that offers non-emergent but medically necessary rides for those in need. It is with that program in mind that we are here today. Rocky Mountain House and Clearwater County's transportation needs are on the rise. And this volunteer-run program experienced an astounding 128% increase in use between 2020 and 2023. This program began in spring of 2010, and in the short time that it started from just one accessible wheelchair van, became a program that has 3 fleet units. In March of this year, the AHS has identified a rise in demand for dialysis transportation and an urgent need for transportation for clients specifically for that service. And with no public transit in our area and taxis who are not delivering accessible rides to our residents, we've really stepped up in terms of meeting that need for this community. We are seeing a trend that people who have medical needs are moving to town to be closer to the medical center. Our program has the potential to meet the increase in demand if our responsibility is shared. And so today, in the spirit of regional collaboration, West Country Family Service Association is requesting that the town match our current grant with Clearwater County in the amount of $20,000 a year with an expiry date of December 31st, 2028. I recognize that decision may have to defer to strategic planning sessions, but I wanted to bring this urgent matter to Council's attention today. Our service greatly benefits the residents of Rocky Mountain House, and last year's statistics truly speak for themselves. 968 of the 1132 trips were pickups from Rocky Mountain House. 116 individual Rocky Mountain House clients were assisted, and over 68,000 kilometers and 2,400 hours for our volunteers were served when driving a client from Rocky Mountain House. Furthermore, our ask aligns with Town Council's strategic plan to cultivate a robust, diverse community where people and businesses thrive, clearly demonstrating Council's desire to ensure a safe and healthy community for all. Currently, 41% of our operational budget and 100% of our capital budget must be fundraised for the Community Access Transportation Program. Additionally, West Country Family Service Association is requesting Council's assistance in bringing attention to this matter at the upcoming AM through a resolution and advocating with Honorable Minister Jason Nixon, our MLA, to respond to the urgent transportation needs of our area. Without a unified approach to the existing transportation crisis that demonstrates and promotes shared responsibility to meet the needs of our region, we are truly facing residents moving away to services that are available or places where those services are available. Reactive rather than proactive approach that is costly, for example, the inappropriate use of ambulatory transport and that ties up first responders or the overuse of hospital beds. Severely impacted quality of life and a missed opportunity to support an established nonprofit organization that offers reliable, accessible, and subsidized program in lieu of available public transit. In 2024, we have refused 17 rides so far, 15 of which were from Rocky Mountain House, simply because our volunteers are already in field. Funding this essential program, without a doubt, meets the needs of our residents. Dustin, did you have anything to add?
I think as council's aware, looking at the reports from Stats Canada, services like the ones that West Country Family Services are extremely important, and will continue to the need for those services will continue to grow over in the next few years. So thank you for allowing us to come in and present today. We appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you very much. I'm going to turn it to council to see if we have any questions to start with. Councillor Auld.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Marina, do you guys run all the way from Rocky to Calgary and Edmonton? Or
Correct.
how often do you think you guys are to the big cities?
It is often.
It is, eh?
Yes, and more on the rise because our specialists are now more and more in the cities.
Thanks very much for coming.
So I just had some questions about transportation. So I know that there's been a committee working on transportation to solve the needs of our community. And I believe, are they having you partner with them now to solve the transportation issue? I thought they were looking for a not-for-profit that was going to run the organization, or is this something completely separate?
Is Mayor referring to Tamarack Transit System?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. So it is a separate unit. Last year they did an public engagement in terms of the needs of this area and have comprised a survey based on that. It was a limited grant that offered that support. There is a current grant that's just a capital grant that is open-ended for nonprofit organizations to apply for public transit, but there's no operational grant that goes along with it. They are a separate entity.
Okay, and then, so currently 41% of your operational budget and 100% of the capital budget is fundraised for transportation, is that
For our
correct?
program, yes.
Yeah, and so that's like the rotary, I'm gonna call it the rotary bus, it's got Al's picture on the back of the van.
So we have 3 fleet units, 2 are accessible and 1 is a regular van.
Yeah, and those are all driven by
Volunteers,
volunteers,
correct.
yeah. And so I know from a meeting about a month ago that we've been working very hard on trying to gather some volunteers, and you've partnered with FCS. How is that search going for volunteers?
Yeah, we have been, even before the partnership with FCSS, we have been advertising through different social media and public communication systems to be able to retain volunteers. We participated in the trade show this past weekend as well, and were able to hand it out about 4 volunteer applications to individuals who are very interested, but had a conversation with pretty much everyone that stopped at our table. Unfortunately, we haven't seen anyone actually complete the onboarding process as of yet. So the
Yeah.
information is certainly out there at the call for volunteers.
Yes, I spoke to one volunteer that we actually
Yes.
got at the luncheon, and she followed up with me last week that she's still going
In the
for her
process.
paperwork before she can onboard. And so just as this is a good platform to ask our community for volunteer help, can you tell me what they are required to have to be able to help with, and some of your problems that we've been facing, like it's not just being a volunteer, you have some, when you're driving the wheelchair van, it would be handy if you're physically able to, you know, assist the wheelchair to the threshold of the home, and what else do they need to be a volunteer, and how do they apply?
Right. So we do have some requirements in place. Class 4 driver's license is one of them, or Class 1 in lieu of. And the FCSS funding that you refer to, our partnership, is specific to volunteer training. So it does not fund the program itself. It's very specific in its intent to do volunteer retention and recruitment effort for the training purposes. The prospective volunteers need to successfully complete the onboarding, which requires a background check as well. And oftentimes we find that the right volunteers are available during the day, during the week. And so it limits many of our residents who work full-time. But it is a very flexible way to volunteer. We work with available schedule for individuals, and it's certainly a wonderful way to give back.
Thank you very much. I believe that Rocky's a very blue-collar town. A lot of people have a Class 1 license that's, current and valid. And your biggest call for time right now is between, is it 6 a.m. and 11 a.m.? Am I close to those times?
Dialysis rides specifically require early mornings, and we do see that about 3 times a week. There is a need on the weekend as well that we have not, as West Country, have not been able to meet. But yes, early mornings right now for the dialysis rides are
Yeah.
high in demand.
So when you talk about overuse of hospital beds, that's one of the ways that we can free up hospital beds, is if we had community volunteers that could guarantee rides for dialysis patients, so they could be at home as long as they had a guaranteed ride. And that would free up some hospital space specifically. Is that correct?
I mean, I can't guarantee that, but that's certainly the intent, that would be one way that we would be able to meet the need in place to get the transport for the clients who require this particular service and other services that are medically specific, and be able to return them home. So again, it's that aging in place and continuity of care.
Thank you very much. Councillor Musker.
Thank you, Your Worship. Good morning, thanks for coming, and this is a great presentation. I see in the presentation here, West Country Family Services proudly serving Rocky Mountain House, Clearwater County, including Ackville, Caroline, and Leslieville. I'm wondering if you also receive municipal support from Ackville and Lacombe County.
Thank you so much again for your presentation. And I just wanted to ask questions now, because we will be discussing this at a future time. The $20,000, so currently you don't receive any municipal funding from the town of Rocky Mountain House?
That is correct.
Yeah, correct. And so the $20,000 would just be to supplement the budget to provide services, specifically transportation, or for just like overall services that you're providing, like Meals on Wheels and some of the other things?
Transportation only for operational budget.
Transportation only. So just to clarify, when we go to discuss that, does anybody else have any other questions on the ask that she's asking? Councillor Phillips, yeah, I see that you have a
Yes,
question.
thank you very much for coming in and doing your presentation. Obviously, West Country Family Services does a lot for our community and for our seniors. The question I have is, it says you have an expiry date of December 31st, 2028. Do you anticipate funding or magic funding coming in 2028, or is this something that will be revisited again in 2028?
It's revisited.
Okay.
This is already a renewal.
Okay, thank you.
So this grant would be yearly, every year until December 31st, 2028? Or you just want a one-time, again, I'm just clarifying because it'll come up again, is it, because it says per year.
So our current grant with Clearwater County is $20,000 a year, every year, until December 31st, 2028. So we were just asking for town to match that.
Okay. And then, thank you for clarifying. Like I said, we're gonna discuss it. We'll need to have answers to, I'm just thinking of all the questions that we could possibly want to ask you when we discuss it, and then this is over. Counselor Hutchinson.
Thank you. I'm not sure if you guys are aware that February this year, council recently put through a policy on support funding. So we've got the guidelines set out as to how, how we'll determine who, what, when, where for funding. And I believe in the policy that it's something that would be reviewed on a yearly basis. So I don't know that, putting a date all the way till 2028 would be possible, but have you reviewed the policy? Have you seen the policy?
I have. Actually, Tracy was kind enough to share it with me prior to the presentation. So we would abide by the application process. And the ask is more, I guess, for council's direction, discretion, to be aware of what we have in place with Clearwater County, and then leave it to your specific policies in place to kind of navigate those conversations.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I just had a question about your adult day support program. I'm just wondering if any of the services that you provide would have to do with recreation. Or is adult support services just like respite and daycare, like care during the day? Or what all does that include? I've had some questions from the community, and I just want to point them in the right direction.
So the ADSP, as we call it, is a contracted service. It is available to 5 Rocky Mountain House residents. It is delivered by healthcare aides. It is provided care once a week to those 5 clients in a specific area. So in a group setting where there is many different activities and programming available to them. It runs approximately from like 10 to 4, if you will. There's lunch included in that. We have musical components. We have components that assist them with kind of technological familiarity, if you will, and then different activities and programs that kind of stimulate them during the day. And the idea of respite is more for the caregiver that looks after the client. So they would basically stay for between the 10 and 4 with us, and then the caregiver is free to kind of either rest or catch up on their own things.
So programming for seniors, say that, maybe they're not in that level of support needed, would transportation cover some of those things, or is it strictly medical transportation? Like to doctor's appointments, it's not like, so when we talk transportation with some other communities, they have a community a bus that picks seniors up from their home, and they can attend a play, for example. They could have attended Grease last week or things like that. Is that in your umbrella of things, or is that more?
It's a good question. I think we have the potential to expand if we have the right support in mind. But right now, with the volunteer complement that we have in place and kind of the mandate, we had to draw a line somewhere. And so kind of keeping it to the basic essential service of medically necessary non-emergent rides is where we were able to find the most amount of success. We do receive requests for rides to go into church or different things that are more quality of life and social support, but we just don't have the capacity to meet that at the current time.
But would that be something that like when you talk to FCSS, they have things that they're allowed to support and things that would that be something in the future that you're allowed to have under your umbrella of services in the community? Or is that strictly a different service? Do you know what I mean? Like when you talk to FCSS, they have, they can put program into this, but then they can't do, they have.
Transportation itself is not funded by FCSS, whether it's medically necessary rides or quality of life rides, if you will. But the program itself, if we have the capacity, we can open it up to more different type of rides. Just right now, we don't have the capacity.
And so with Tamarack, the Tamarack program, could it not work in partnership with you? Or is it that you still need we still need a volunteer
The
group
decision to defer to partner with them really has to do with the operational budget that is non-existent. So really, we would be asked to fundraise 100% of that operational budget in order to go into a potentially pilot program, which is what was in discussion. And then it would eventually stay with Tamarack Transit System in terms of kind of a hub delivery based on the different areas where we have residents in the Clearwater County and town of Rocky Mountain House.
So if we were gonna lobby the government, would it be federal government, provincial government, if we were to say, we have this capital funding for this project, it's an essential service for our community, it would be a provincial, grant application then?
I would have to look into the application process for that particular grant a little bit
Okay.
more. Tamarack Transit System and
Okay.
really Candace and Janice were the experts in
Okay.
terms of where that funding was coming from. But again, it was just capital.
Yeah, I know there's been a lot of conversations about siloing. Like, I wanna bring everybody together if we can, combine and, then the services can be,
Yeah.
so. Does anybody else have any questions for Marina and Dustin? And thank you again then, I guess, so much for coming today. I really appreciate it. And Councillor Caprero, I may have missed if you had anything on the screen, but we're good?
We're good, thank you.
Thank you so much. And so I thank you very much for coming today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Likewise.
Thanks, guys.
So that is the only delegation that we have for today. So that completes 4.1. Mr. Kraus, do I need a motion? Thank you. So no. So now we're moving on to 5.1, adoption of the previous minutes. Is there any questions or concerns about the previous minutes for April 16th or April, Councillor Chappelle? Sorry, I saw you touch your light.
Okay. I also move the acceptance of the minutes from the April 16th meeting as presented.
Thank you very much. And do we have any questions or comments on that motion? Seeing none, I'll call that to a vote. All in favor of that motion? And any opposed? And could I also have a motion for 5.2? Councillor Phillips?
Yes, I'll make a motion to accept the meeting minutes for the special council meeting of April 24th.
Thank you very much. Seeing there's no questions or comments on that motion, I'll call that to a vote. All in favor of that motion? And that's carried, no opposed. So 6.1 is delegation business. And so I think we should just look at the request right off the hop and how do we want to handle that? Is that something that we feel we should address before the next service level and budget? Councillor Hutchinson.
Thank you. I think that we should just follow the policy procedure that we've put into place, that has all of these, various groups that are coming forward asking for requests, that we have the policy in place and to follow it and have the group, recommend to the group to fill out the application form. So we would be looking at that in the fall. So the application needs to be in before October 1st for the upcoming year. So I would like to see us go that direction.
So your recommendation is to wait until the fall for service level review after they've put their application in? So I just want to clarify.
The policy states that the organization must apply prior to October 1st, and then that gives us the opportunity to look at all of the applications before we do budget deliberations and service level, I believe. So it would be.
So your answer is yes, I don't want to do anything until with the application in the fall.
Yes, just
Yeah.
follow the policy that we have in place.
Okay, so like, I feel this is an urgent need for our community, and I just wanted to have a little bit more conversation about it. Councillor Phillips, you're always the one that discusses what's our responsibilities in our wheelhouse. What's your opinion on, like, addressing this? Is this something that you think the community feels strongly about proceeding with until we can get this in place?
I mean, there's lots of different topics that the community feels are needed, and this is a definite topic that we need to discuss. You know, is there a need for this? Yes. Is there budget for this right now? No. So our 2024 budget has already been allocated and made up. As Councillor Hutchinson had alluded to, our policy states that, you know, we need to look at these and we need to bring them to service level, because if we say yes to 5 $20,000 commitments over the course of a year, we've already mandated a 1% tax increase, or more than a 1% tax increase for 2025. That's why the policy is in place, to make sure that we don't hamstring ourselves, so that come 2025, we've already spent money that we haven't budgeted for. So to me, I think we need to follow the policy, although I do believe that this is a very strong case. The community needs this. However, there's nothing in our 2024 budget, so I do think that we need to follow our policy and look at this in our service level review for the 2025 budget.
Thank you very much. Does anybody else have any questions or comments? Councillor Ald.
Thank you. Yeah, I totally agree with Councillor Hutchinson. We need to have the application in so we can discuss it at service level, but they have two asks. They're also asking for our support in bringing this up with Minister Nixon. So I think that is definitely something that we can do ahead of time. Have administration come up with a letter supporting this that they can take to AM. But yeah, as far as $20,000, we need to discuss that at service level.
Thank you very much for those comments. And seeing this, no other questions or comments. I believe this is a really urgent need, and I agree. I agree we need to discuss it and look at the things. I think we should also bring in or ask Tamarack Trail Transportation to come in and do another presentation with us as a follow-up, so that we can either partner with them or move forward or match them up. Because if they've already got capital funding, why are we, having 6 different things provide with the same problem when one could come up with a solution? So I guess I'm looking for a motion to write our MLA, and I would also suggest our MP. You never know what kind of federal money is available. That transportation, Tamarack Transportation got theirs federally, so 2 letters, one to MLA Nixon is my suggestion, and one to our MP Gerald Soroka, so we can get federal, and then discuss this at service level is what I think maybe the motion should look like. Councillor Phillips?
Yeah, I agree that we need to be advocating to our MLA and our MP on decisions like this. This is an age-old problem. There's always money for capital funding. There's never money for operational funding. And it's always great to get a program up and running, but it has to be sustainable for 20, 30, 40 years. And this is where, us, AB Munis, RMA can take the advantage and discuss this with our MLAs and our MPs and hopefully bring that forward to their budget discussions so that they can make positive change for us. So yes, I would be happy to make a motion that we send letters to our MP and MLA regarding this budget request and advocating support for it.
So did you make a motion?
Yes, I did.
Okay, and did you say we're gonna wait until service level to talk about it?
I think that'll be 2 separate motions.
Okay, so
Yeah.
so the first one is for the letters?
Yes.
Okay, just clarifying. You had a long paragraph there before we got to the motion, so. The motion on the table is for a letter to our MP and MLA for support for programs for operational funding. Is that, yes, okay. Any questions or comments about the motion on the table? Your light is still on, but okay, so, no other questions or comments on the motion, so that I'll call that to a vote. All in favor of that motion? And no opposed, and that's carried. And so would someone at this time like to make a second motion? Counselor Hutchinson.
Thank you. I'd just like to make a motion to accept item 4.1, the delegation, West Country Family Services, as information.
So yeah, go ahead, Counselor Chappelle.
I'm just wondering if we should not only accept it as information, but put it forward for a service level review and put it on that agenda, just to have a discussion at the service level review, if there is funding available or not for the program.
My thoughts, thank you. My thoughts would be that it would be up to the group to put forward the application under the policy, and then that application will be reviewed at service level, if I'm understanding correctly, Mr. Crouse?
Well, if you hold it for information, we do nothing. So we should really put a deadline that we're gonna review the $20,000 at such and such a time. That, is that not correct?
Yeah, so your worship, maybe just a little advice to council. The appropriate motion might be that council thank West Country for their presentation and encourage them to apply through the council support funding program. And that will automatically take it to service level if they do so.
So Counselor Hutchinson, would
Thank
you
you.
like to amend your motion at this time?
I probably should have read the motion that I had written down prior to it. But yes, to add to that, that council recommends West Country Family Services to put the application forward under policy 007/2024 to be brought forward to service level review. Does that capture everything?
I think that's a better motion, thank you. So, do we have any further questions or comments about the clarified amended motion? Seeing none, I'll call that to a vote. All in favor of that motion? And that's carried. And lastly, I would like to make a motion to have administration contact Tamarack Transit and have them have a meeting with us or come as a delegation, so we can follow up on where we're at with transportation project in our community. And maybe we can get something partnered up and get things happening. Any questions or comments about that motion? And I'm gonna let administration do that whenever time permits. Any questions or comments about that motion? Seeing none, I'll call that to a vote. All in favor of that motion? Any opposed? And none, and that's carried. So thank you very much. That concludes 6.1. We have no old business today, and we are now at 8.1 for new business, the RFD for airport fee comparisons. And Mr. Kraus, would that be you?
Yeah, no, thank you, worship. From my understanding, since I was away at the last meeting, but this is just a rise and report from the PC committee, just to have a resolution to forward this discussion to an ICC meeting. So I believe that's all that's really here for today.
So we just want to move all of this information to an ICC?
That's my understanding from the GPC meeting. Is that
So, okay. I just thought I thought we were gonna have a discussion because we didn't have this information at the last meeting where we were gonna send it. We were gonna talk about, we had lots of questions about it. That's my confusion there. Counselor Phillips, please go
Sorry,
ahead.
at the GPC meeting, we had discussed that the first step is to talk to our partners in the airport, because if there's no will on their side to do this, then it's a moot point. So that was why we took it from the GPC meeting and did a rise and report to our council meeting so we could bring it to the next ICC meeting.
Okay, so would you like to make a motion at this time?
Yes, I'd like to make a motion that administration take the information to the next ICC meeting for discussion.
Is there any questions or comments about that motion at this time? Seeing none, I'll call that to a vote. All in favor of the motion? And any opposed? And seeing none, and so that's carried. The information will be discussed at the future ICC meeting to see if there's any desire to move forward. 8.2, and I'm sure that's why we have a gallery today. So thank you very much for being here. I just want to say that you're allowed to listen, and if you have any questions, unfortunately, we can't say anything, but thank you for attending and listening to this. So we're doing McNutt subclass 8.2, and I'm just, a little bit of movement here, so Mr. Kraus, will you be starting with that then?
Your worship, I don't know if Councilor Schippelt wants to proceed. I mean, this is his agenda item, or?
Okay, so I can go to Councillor Chappelle. Would you like to proceed?
Thank you, Your Worship. Please, if I can.
Yes, please.
So I put this on the agenda because I felt, or I'm getting feedback from the McNutt subdivision in terms of anomalies in that subdivision to other areas of town and taxation. So they're getting taxed the same assessment rate as anybody else in town, including me. And they're subsidizing, for example, the power bill on my street. And their snow removal is going into their ditch, and then they have a rock issue, and they don't have sidewalk repairs, I do. They don't have crack filling on their streets, I do. You know, there's just a bunch of anomalies. They don't have fire hydrants, which means their insurance rate is higher. And so I think there's a significant amount of difference in the McNutt subdivision. And there are differences and anomalies throughout the community. But I do think the McNutt subdivision is over and above the normal in terms of what they have. And so what I'm looking for is for us to do a subclass with a minor adjustment to what the taxation would be for that McNutt subdivision area. And so I'm hoping there's traction amongst my fellow council members to allow that to happen. I've sent pictures out about the gravel in the ditches and stuff like that. So at minimum, if nothing else, because this is going to reduce the amount of revenue to the town of Rocky Mountain, it may be something that would be talked about at a service level review. But I strongly advocate that those folks in McNutt need and deserve not to subsidize the rest of us in Rocky Mountain House. I think we're on a user pay system for so many things, and in this case, they're paying for things that they are not using. So, and for those people who've taken a drive through McNutt, can appreciate the fact that it's not my street that they're driving on for a whole bunch of reasons. So, so anyway, that's where I'm at. I really have been advocating for a subclass for that area. Could there be other areas that fall into a subclass? There could be or couldn't be. I think that there is so many anomalies in this case in that area that it's worthy of looking at.
And so, thank you so much, Councillor Chappelle. I think that this is a just use of our time to also encourage other subdivisions to be part of our community. We want development and growth, and along the outskirts of our community, it's the perfect way. We need to start partnering and looking at in our best interests of our community members. So if I'm reading right, direction is needed for how much lower the subclass mill rate would be. And your suggestion is that we talk about it later or talk about it today, because I see the report is here.
So the report is here. I don't think one assessment class for all of Rocky Mountain House holds. And we have other assessment classes in Rocky Mountain House. So I think that, you know, when we look at our assessment notices, or when we talk about budgeting, we have several different areas under residential and under commercial and under industrial. So it's not that we're creating a new breed. We do have subclasses already. I think in this case, this subclass identifies that McNutt subdivision independently. So I move forward point, I think that's what you're asking, is how I suggest we go forward.
Yeah.
I'm thinking that, number one, we can't do anything for this year's taxation period, it's for next year. So if in fact there's traction amongst council to have a look at it, that we'd bring it forward at our next service level review. that service level review could even address other things, like, hey, if we are leaving the assessment as it is, are we gonna look at putting lights in and/or are we gonna clean the ditches for the residents in that area? And not have them have to clean the ditches because they haul the snow away on my street, they push the snow with the gravel in a ditch in that area. So, I just think there's anomalies out there that those residents are paying for that
Yeah.
they don't get the service I get, and I don't think that's fair. I think we need to be fair to our residents.
So I see we have no one else's lights on, and so I would like to move forward at this time and make a motion that, to start with, that we don't wait to service level, that we make a motion to identify McNutt subdivision as a subclass and start working towards what that looks like, so then, because government takes time. So in a year from now, we can have this resolved if we don't set it up as a subclass and start moving forward. Once it's a subclass, then we can look at, what services are we providing. I think some of the frustration has been that the road servicing and things like that, we can all look at later. But I think our first step today should be, if we all agree, that we can identify this as a unique and individual part of our community that deserves to have a subclass. Ken Musker.
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. Seeing as this is Councillor Chappelle's football that he's carrying, I'd like us to stick with his suggestion and move it to the service level, leave it there. Gives me time to digest it and spend time with it and talk to people, rather than diving into it here today.
Yeah. So by creating a subclass or asking to create a subclass, we don't have to make all of the decisions today. It just says that we are going to, in the future, make those, that information. And so that's why I want us to start working on it so that we can have it done before we get to service level. Because at service level, we have always a lot. We have a binder that we go through. And the more things we can get resolved during council time, throughout the year, it saves time at service level. Councillor Phillips.
Yes, thank you. I like Councillor Schippel's idea of moving this to service level for two reasons. One, we can't change the taxation year for 2024. This would be a taxation change for 2025. And to have a holistic discussion, because I don't think we're just talking about McNutt, because there's Old Town, there's acreages that we have along the North Saskatchewan River, and even some industrial areas could potentially be different subclasses. So I think this is a large discussion, and I think it's one that we need to have at service level because it's going to have a budgetary impact for 2025, and that's where the service level sets the direction for the 2025 budget. And in the discussion in 2024 at the service level, I think there should also be a discussion on whether we look at doing paving on this road and make that happen. Whether that becomes a special tax levy or whether the residents want it or not, I think that needs to be part of this discussion. So I think this is it's more than one topic. I think there's a multitude of topics in there, and I think it's going to take some time to discuss it. And I would like the administration to get things together so that when we discuss this at service level, we'll find out how much it potentially would cost to do paving in that subdivision. And not just that subdivision, we have other subdivisions that may also impact. So just to see what that looked like, whether the residents want that or not, that's another topic as well. So I think this is a good thing that Councillor Schippel has moving to service level, and I think that's the right avenue to discuss it.
Councillor Schippel, your light's been on. Did you have something to add?
No, I'm waiting for Councillor Ald, and then I will have some.
Okay, Councillor Ald.
Thank you. I agree with Councillor Phillips. I'm not 100% sure from the letters that we've received from some of the residents at McNutt that it's a tax break that they're looking for, or if it's more of an increase in service that they're looking for. So I would be more inclined to get an agreement with them if it's more services that they're looking for, or if it is actually a tax break they want, and that will solve the issues of a lack of service, or whether if we do a different tax subclass, whether we still are going to be requested to increase services. definitely would have some more questions around that, so I would like to see it go to service level.
I'm just gonna ask Mr. Kraus a question. Is there a way we could have a meeting with the people in McNutt subdivision before we go to service level to answer some of those questions? I see that there's definite, thank you. I see that there's some definite interest by the number of people that have attended today in the gallery. So how would we do that? Would we do a letter, like, my motion is still on the table. I haven't withdrawn it yet because I have an active motion on, so we can't make a different motion until that time. But I would like to know if we move forward with identifying, I can amend my motion to say we have a public meeting with the residents of McNutt. How do we have public participation in this discussion?
So, Your Worship, I mean, council has several options available to them for public engagement under our public engagement policy. We could have a town hall meeting with the residents of McNutt for a one-on-one type of discussion. There's surveys, so that is entirely up to council.
Okay, so based on the number of people I see here today, and I'm assuming that they are gonna bring information back to their neighbors, that's how a community and a thing does. I would like to amend my motion to say that we hold a public town hall with the members of the McNutt subdivision so that we can answer some of the questions that we have, so that when we move forward at service level, we actually know what they want for their subdivision and make sure we have enough information that when we have this healthy discussion, maybe a little bit of a presentation, what do things mean? What does a subclass mean? You know, so that when we have this, so I amend my motion to have a public meeting with the people of McNutt subdivision. Any questions or comments on that motion? Or just in general, Councillor Chappelle?
Your Worship, if I could, I would support that motion of yours, and I think it would answer Councillor All's questions in terms of what are they looking for, and I think we really need to answer that question, what are they looking for? Is it services, or is it a reduction in taxation, or a combination of everything, and how do we go forward? So I think a meeting, just understanding what that area of people are looking for would make total sense. So I think we should move forward with that first. It would give us an indication of where we're going after that.
Councillor Musker, your light is still on as well.
It sure is. Thank you, Your Worship. This motion has gotten quite convoluted now. So would legislative services be able to read it back? We sometimes have it displayed where we can read it,
We
but that's not
can't do that
available
today, but Tracy,
But,
do you feel comfortable with what I'm looking for?
Absolutely, Mayor.
Thank you.
So be it resolved that council hold a public town hall with the residents of McNutt subdivision, not subclass, to gather information, more information.
Thank you.
And I also would like administration to prepare some information to present to those residents so that when we have the discussion, they have, you know, the information that they need.
Yeah,
Mr.
yeah,
Kraus?
No, thank you, Your Worship. Just to strengthen that motion, I would suggest a date.
Okay.
We administrate probably September, if you will, you know, for us to prepare a presentation and stuff like that. Just get us
Okay.
over the summer months and.
So, does September, it seems late in the year, if we wanna, you know, we're gonna talk about it in the 1st of October, do we wanna have it?
Would it form part of a council meeting, a GPC meeting, and/or a freestanding meeting where we would invite everybody, say, to the subway room or something such as that? What would we look for a venue?
Your Worship, I mean, that's up to council, but I would envision that it'd be a town hall informal meeting for open discussion, starting off with a presentation on taxations and services and so forth, and then receiving input from the residents and going from there.
Okay, and so I know that it's 9 o'clock on a Tuesday. I don't know if that is a good time or if we should set it at an evening to catch all the people who maybe are working during the day. So I'm gonna suggest that we do a 7 PM meeting in the subway room. I don't wanna leave it too late in the year, but I don't want it when people are on summer holidays. So first couple weeks of September, if that fits in the schedule. Tracy, Mr. Kraus, does that give a motion with enough information to move forward? Okay, so do we need to read the motion again, that we're gonna have a public town hall with the people of McNutt subdivision at the Subway Room at 7 PM in the first couple weeks of September? Any questions or comments on that motion? Seeing none, I will call that to vote. All in favor of that motion? And any opposed? And that's carried. And thank you so much for the conclusion of that. So we will have administration, will let all the members of McNutt subdivision know, and can look forward to that sometime in September. And you're free to stay, or you could leave, whatever and I'm sorry, I can't answer any questions right now, but we'll have a recess. We could actually, would you like to have a recess maybe now, an hour in? No, keep going. We have a big agenda today, so you're welcome to stay, or you can wait till we have a recess and talk to us then, okay? Yes, that's public engagement, yes. So I'll clarify that. So public engagement, that's why I specifically asked that. Public engagement is to get feedback from the community. And that's why I just needed to know what the right word was, because we've been doing some training on public engagement. So yes, people will be able, we could have a survey there, you could have questions. It's just like you are definitely allowed to talk when we have that meeting, and that's why I proposed it, so that we can actually hear what you want. And so, sorry.
Excuse me.
So,
Excuse me.
yeah, so I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I'm
point of
sorry.
order.
That's all I can say now. And so thank you so much for attending. So moving forward in the motion, in the meeting, we are now on to 8.3, the RFD for tax rate bylaw. Mr. Kraus, oh, no, sorry, Betty. Thank you so much.
Make sure. Good morning, your worship and council. So we have the 2024 tax rate bylaw in front of you. I'm just gonna walk through the briefing note fairly quickly. I cover several areas within the tax bylaw, just to provide some background. So, the first thing we do when we're starting to draft the tax bylaw is we get the final assessments from our assessor. I have included a short table that highlights the summary of it, as well as there's an assessment or a document showing all the different classes in our assessment. This year we have, the assessment has gone up by about 45 million to, I always love when I get to say this, $1,026 million. But almost $42 million of that is due to inflation. And it is interesting to see that the inflation has impacted our two major classes quite differently. The inflation on residential is higher than the inflation on non-residential. And-
What page are you on that you're getting those numbers? I just want to follow where you're at. I'm lost.
I have a paper copy, so I'm on page 4 of 8.
Thank you. Got it.
Of the,
Whole printout.
under assessment. So, and then the new assessment, was 3.6 million for this year.
Under assessment.
So that's sort of your base when you start to calculate your tax bylaw. The next little graph just kind of shows a high-level summary of, we've got some very individual classes like single families and duplexes, and this is the rolled-up level to where we do taxation, and just kind of showing you the differences between assessment, between 23 and 24, what our new assessment is in dollar values, and the new taxes that it's generating. So it's generating about $36,000 in new taxes. When I put all of that into the calculation machine and look at our different rates and calculate, we basically calculate absolute tax dollars based on our budget. So the inflation is factored out of the mill rates. I know a lot of people worry and think, oh, well, my house went up, so you're gonna collect more money. No, we dropped the mill rate so that we collect the same amount of money overall. It's ended up that we've basically had to increase the tax rate by 4.38%. When we did the budget, we had talked about 4. There's a little table that shows you the differences. New assessment didn't come in as high as we had anticipated. And then there's the new tax incentive that we have 2 properties that are receiving funds on. And then we calculate the tax rates at a full amount, but the provincial GIL only pays half. So we have to pull that 50% out. So we were collecting 9.7 million, and to do that, we had to do a 4.38% tax rate. And on a residential basis, it translates into about $82 a year. So it's not huge, but it is an increase compared to other previous years. Just touching really quickly, seniors requisitions, they have gone up from prior years, so the seniors requisition went up by 85,000. That's something we have no control over. That's what the school boards set for what their requisition is, and then we pay it. And the same goes for seniors housing. It went from 124,000 up to 155. So with that, I guess I will take questions.
Thank you. That was, you did great getting those 4 pages in one mouthful. Good job. So Councillor Chappelle, I see your light is on.
Thank you, Your Worship. If I could, I have some questions. My first question is on page 4 of 8, under financial. And the comment is, tax increases are normally based on consumer price index. And I question the validity of that statement, because on the next page, it then goes on to say, an overall tax rate increase of 4.38 is necessary to collect the funds to balance the budget. So I guess the question I have is, tax increases are to balance the budget, not necessarily hinged on consumer price index. So I'm confused as to, when we balance our budget, we balance it to balance the budget. Really, I don't think the consumer price index has, I mean, it's nice to know, and if it goes up, it's sort of something you hinge on, but I don't think that that's really the first statement under financial is that we balance, or tax increases are normally based on consumer price index. I just question that statement, whether in fact it's valid or not when it comes to budgeting.
Typically, in my experience of setting tax rates, we don't follow it, but we always use it as a guide. So when we start looking at potential tax increases, say in the fall, we always look at what CPI, it just gives us a yardstick. I have found in the past councils would be very reluctant if CPI was 3% to do a 10% tax increase. So you try to look at it as a trend. That's
The
yeah.
yardstick, thank you, yeah. 'Cause
So, does that make sense? Because most of our budget can be attributed to some of our administration and our cost of employees. If that's a large portion, then it would make sense if we're giving everybody a 3.7 CPI raise, and that's a large portion of our operating budget, it would make sense, but it doesn't necessarily hinge on that, right? It hinges on balancing the budget.
I don't really have a response for that, other than my entire career, we've always used CPI as a yardstick, so it just gives you a baseline.
Councillor Schiffel, did you have another question?
Yes, I do.
Thank you.
If you allow me. On that same paragraph, the very last line, it says, the prior 4 years had 0 tax increases. That's likely a true statement, but it concerns me because we've changed the way we do utility billing. And so we went to a full user pay system with utility billing. So when you get a utility bill, it pays 100%. One time that was subsidized out of general revenues or via taxation. So in that 4 years, there was a time when did we not use some of our general revenues to subsidize our water and sewer bills, our utility bills. And so in fact, when we increased our water and sewer bills, we generated revenue which offset a cost that had originally been coming from our general revenues. So when we say we have 4 years of zero tax increases, that's true, but in one sense, we've gained revenues through another avenue. Is that not correct, or tell me if I'm off the line?
Not to my knowledge. When I came, utilities were self-balancing, so, as long as I've been here and previous budgets that I looked at, so no, they've always been self-balancing.
Can I
Well,
turn that to
I know,
Mr.
but-
Kraus?
Okay.
Yeah,
That-
yeah, so,
For those 4 years, you're correct in 1 year. 1 year was just a readjustment where we actually went to full cost recovery in utilities, which took the subsidization out of the tax rate. So that year, it was capable of doing a 0% increase in taxation, the taxation dollars that we needed to collect. That was one of the 4 years, and that was, I think, 6 years ago, 5 years ago. The other 0% in the year, there was multiple things. We cut, actually, in 1 year, we cut $400,000 out of salaries. We realigned our organization and we had less positions, you know, so that was another one. Then COVID came in, and COVID was really just a pull back, tighten the belt, don't do anything, you know, for the 0%. So, but you're correct, 1 year, that was an adjustment going to full cost recovery on utilities.
and another year, we reduced some services, like we reviewed our RCMP contributions to balance it.
Thank you.
Do you have another question, or we'll follow up to that?
Another question?
Yes,
If
no,
I would
please
give a
go
short-
ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Kraus. I appreciate that, because sometimes I think we are not being clear to our residents that when we use that, we use it freely, and sometimes it's not quite there. Anyhow, thank you for that. Another question I have. Under education and school requisitions, it says, in 2023, a school requisition was over levied by X amount of money, and then it's under levied. When it's under levied or over levied, is that due to the province not giving us proper numbers, or is that due to something that we did internally here? I just don't understand what the words over levied or under levied mean
Okay,
in that
so
statement.
we set the tax rate in this bylaw, and then we, you know, send out the tax notices. I do believe there was 2 changes after we approved the tax bylaw last year. So what that is showing is that last year we collected $2,600 too much on the residential side. So we set the amount, like we have to pay the government a certain, the government a certain amount. And if we over or under collect that, we adjust the subsequent year. And it can be, if there was any changes to assessments right before we send out the notice. And it never completely balances, so we always calculate it for year end and then adjust subsequent. So we were 26 over on residential and 2,200 under on non-res for a net over under levy of $416.
Okay. That makes total sense. I have one last question.
Absolutely.
This one could be for Councillor Hutchinson, or you've already basically answered it. This has to do with seniors' housing went up 26% this year in terms of the requisitioning amount. And I know we can't do anything about requisitioning bodies, but can we let them know that that's an astronomical amount? And I'm not sure if there's any way we can get that number down, or can we get Councillor Hutchinson to deliver the message? Because 26% increase, the taxpayers of the town of Rocky Mountains are picking that up. And that seems like a large amount of money, 26%. Just, maybe we have nothing, maybe we just have to, maybe it's like educational tax, it is what it is, and so be it. But I look at that and I go like, that is part of our community. How do we deliver that message saying, hey, somehow we gotta be cognizant of the fact it's a big number,
A big percentage.
big percentage.
Thank you for that. There's been a number of things that have been recognized at the lodge. Unfortunately, that building is not very old. It's only 12 years old. And we're finding major construction issues that weren't done properly to begin with. The entire dining room floor, the concrete is all crumbling in there. We've had to replace concrete in front of the elevators because, of course, with seniors and walkers, the floors like this. So we've got that. We've got roofing issues where some of the joists weren't exactly lining up the way they should be. We've had it inspected. We're at the point where it's just being monitored because eventually the shingles, the whole roof will have to be replaced with time. So that would all be done in conjunction at the same time. So we've developed a capital plan which hasn't happened at the lodge for, well, before it was, but it wasn't, it was a spur of the moment capital plan. So foreseeing these things that are coming up, it's been, we've developed the plan so that we're requisitioning a little at a time as opposed to in 4 years from now, we're gonna be looking at a $600,000 bill that's gonna have to be supported by town and county. And our percentage is 26 and the county's is the 74%.
So has administration been made aware of these all along, like as soon as you get the information? Or have they been made aware so that we can have discussions about it? Cause this is, like, is this in a report that this is going to be coming?
Your worship, if I could, so I'll put a little caveat on this, so to answer Councilor Shipman's question. So under the Alberta Housing Act, Seniors Lodge can only requisition for the previous year's deficit. So that's the guideline or the basis for it, and to keep it in check versus just whatever they want. So now, a few years back, we were approached by the senior housing and saying they're running into some capital issues, and if the municipalities would approve to go above the legislated requisition to assist in those capital pressures, I guess. And that was agreed upon. I think that goes back even 3 years. And so now annually they send us a letter with the request for the requisition and what that is. And then of course we have a council member as a board member.
So that letter, does that come before service level for discussion? Like,
No, they send us a letter for what the requisition is for that year, and then that's what we place into the budget and the tax bylaw.
what is the municipal, like we're only allowed, we've been going on what we are supposed to pay for policing. What is the percentage that is mandated, and how much are we now above what we're mandated for?
Well, it's not a percentage, it's their previous year's operating deficit.
But you said that we agreed a couple years ago to go above what's mandated.
Dated, yeah.
So what is mandated?
Their previous year's operating deficit.
And so this the $31,000 difference is just what they overspent on their budget?
No. I don't have the financials for the housing authority in front of me.
Well, I'm just looking at the numbers that's provided on page 7 of 8. Right?
So by legislation, what they have a right to requisition is their previous year's operating deficit. But that doesn't restrict them from asking the municipalities to go beyond that for any reason. And in this case, is because they're feeling pressures on capital improvements or capital upgrades or repairs to the facility.
No, the provincial government's put out a lot of grants and stuff. What have we been applying for to offset some of these issues that you're having?
The provincial, this is for Westview Lodge only. We've got the 2 sets of financial statements that the government, on the self-contained side, there is government funds that come available, but there's always strings attached to how that can get spent, but that's on the self-contained, not on the lodge part of it. And that comes with how the revenue is collected. From the lodge, we've got our set prices based on what revenue they get. They're allowed at the end of the day $384, where self-contained is different. So there isn't funding that's coming from the government.
So whatever programs are available don't fit any of the criteria, and we haven't applied for any of the grants that are out there.
There's very few grants for the lodge programs. So, no.
That's what I'm,
And-
yes or no
and there's-
question, sorry, yeah, okay, so, does that answer all your questions about that number? It's like 31,000's not that much, right? But it's a good question.
It's 26%.
26%, yes.
Thank you, Councillor Hutchinson, for answering that. Didn't mean to put you in a hot seat. I'd be prepared to make the motion that we give this, the Town of Rocky Mountain House bylaw 2024-07, 2024 property tax rate bylaw, first reading on today's date.
Okay, thank you very much. Now, I thought I saw some other lights on, nope. With the motion on the table, do we have any questions or comments about the motion? Seeing none, I'll call that to vote. All in favor of the motion? And any opposed? And that's carried. Do we have any other motions today? Councillor Ald.
Thank you. I'd make the motion that council give second reading to bylaw 2024/07, being a bylaw for the 2024 rates of taxation.
Thank you very much. Again, if you have any questions or comments about the motion on the table for second reading, seeing none, I'll call that to a vote. All in favor of that motion? And any opposed? And that's none, so that's carried. Do we have any other motions today? Councillor Phillips.
Yes, thank you. I'd like to make a motion that council give unanimous consent for consideration to third reading for bylaw 2024/07.
Thank you very much. So my only comment about this motion is that although I don't like doing 3 readings in one motion, this is an important part of business and we need to move forward so that we know how much everybody's taxes are gonna be. So, with that being said, I agree with the motion on the table. If there's no other questions or comments, I'll call that to a vote. Seeing none, all in favor of the motion? And any opposed? And that's carried. Do we have any other motions today? Councillor Hutchinson.
Yes, I would like to make the motion that council give third and final reading to bylaw 2024/07, being a bylaw for the 2024 rates of taxation.
Thank you very much. All in favor, if there's no questions or comments on that motion, all in favor of the motion? Any opposed? And that's carried. So that seems to have concluded 8.3. Just a quick question. I'm deciding whether we break now or I don't want to break halfway through. Do you think 15 minutes would be reasonable, or would you like to break now before we go into all your financials?
I think this will go fairly
Okay.
quick.
Thank,
Depends on the questions.
thank you. So, sorry,
oh,
eight,
go ahead.
8.4, that concluded 8.3, now we're at 8.4, RFD for Q1 financials. Thank you very much, Ms. Quinlan.
Thank you, your worship and council. This is just our first quarter financial statement, so it's in a standard format, and we try to bring it every quarter so that you're made aware of our activity. The first quarter is always, the operations is standard, but the capital I find is always a little light because we've approved the budget and then people are just ramping up to start doing the various capital projects. We've started showing a comparative to last year. So this year we've got a small surplus of 127,000 compared with a deficit of 215. We do have a variance analysis. I'm not gonna go through it, but basically we're really right on track. Revenues are sitting at about 25%. Interest revenue is still exceeding expectations, even though we bumped it up significantly during budget. And we're sitting at 24% on expenditures. when we go through it, a lot of the variances that we're finding are really timing differences. It's things, that happen sort of at the beginning of the year. We, like taxes and penalties are a little high, but that's because on January 1, we assess taxes and penalties. So there's a bigger lump sum activity going on. So it's a seasonal difference, and it will equal itself out. The same with, you know, if there's any activities in the organization, a lot of times FCSS gives out more grants right at the beginning of the year, so that creates a bit of a fluctuation. The capital activities, and I'm just gonna touch on them briefly. We've spent 1.251 million, and this, there's an income statement, and then we also give you a list of all the projects. We're also listing the carry forward projects from the year end, so, and we add those in at the first quarter for every year. We've also added, and it makes the budgets look really high, but we're including the full budget, or what's remaining of the budget for the wastewater treatment plant, which is, you know, sitting at upwards of $24 million right now. But just to really, for you to see how much money is left and where we're at on that. But we're quite low on expenditures, and, I mean, people are just starting to plan. The wastewater treatment plant construction is underway. I haven't heard any reports lately, but I know that we're starting to get bigger invoices in on a monthly basis. Is there any questions?
Councillor Chappelle.
I only have a couple, and this question, Your Worship, could be for Mr. Kroos, and has to do with provincial fines are 20,000 compared to 7,000 last year. Is that generated through the CPOs, or is that generated through the RCMP, or do we have that number as to how that fund is substantially higher, so why?
I would have to look into it, but the answer to your question is it's from both the RCMP and our CPOs, the provincial fines. But for a breakdown, I would have to go back to the departments to see how much percentage of each that allocates for that.
Could I get that information, please?
That's a great administrative inquiry, yes. Yeah, but I can do it. Yeah. Yes.
I got a list of administration inquiries already that's fairly substantial. I will add that to the list. Thank you for that, Mr. Kroos.
Did you have a further question?
I do have another question, if I could. That's with the construction of the new wastewater treatment plant. And so I drove down to have a look at how much is in the ground and what it looks like. And I see where we've already paid about $7 million of a $30 million thing, 25% basically. Are the engineers signing off on that, or how does that number get determined as to what percentage of the build is in place already? Because I'm sure they've already probably ordered equipment and stuff that we're paying for. It's not all on site at this time, so that you never know what's happening. What you see and what you got is sometimes two different things, so.
So to answer your question, yes, actually, the contractor submits an invoice, the engineers go through that invoice and verify that each line item actually represent what has been done in the field. But you're also right, there's equipment bought that are, that's paid for and shipped in. We have tons of pumps, centrifuges, and all of that. And then plus, of course, with any project is the mobilization costs, which we get invoiced for, like, at the beginning of the project, so.
I'm sorry, what is mobilization?
The cost for them to move equipment and all that to site,
Okay.
so.
Thank you very much for answering that question. While he's writing that down and thinking of his next question.
I'm sorry.
My question is, when will that be online again?
We are looking at online in February or March of 2025.
Okay, I thought it was, has it changed or has it always been that?
No, that's where it's been, but during our budget discussions with council, is really we need, the commissioning is gonna start late this year of it. So we have to be prepared and have operational staff or contractor on site for the
For training.
training and commissioning of the site, so.
And when will we start seeing that on our utility bills?
Well, that'll be a discussion going into 2025 budget process.
So not till 2025 then?
Yeah.
Thank you. Did you have any further questions for, about the budget?
I have none, but I would make the motion.
Okay.
The motion that council accepts the March 31st, 2024 operating variance, capital and capital project listing reports for information.
Thank you very much. I didn't check if anybody else had any questions, but I see no lights on, so if there's no questions on the motion on the table, I will call that to a vote. Seeing none, all in favor of the motion? And any opposed? Marley, if I ever miss you, because I sometimes forget to look at the screen, let me just holler somehow. So that's
Okay.
carried, no opposed, and thank you very much. So moving forward in the agenda, I think before we start on correspondence for action, we'll just take a brief 10-minute recess and then come back to it. So we're going to resume the live stream. Go ahead. Thank you very much. So welcome back to the Town of Rocky Mountain House regular council meeting. We're moving forward in the agenda. We have correspondence for action. The first item on our list is 9.1, the Rocky Mountain House Ag Society letter. I can talk about that. So the Ag Society is doing a project where they're identifying and locating historical schools in Clearwater County. So that includes Rocky E, even though it's not in the county, it's in the town. So over the past 2 years, they've compiled information, and they're actually still 100% trying to decide where the original school site was. Yeah, so they're making a marker similar to the one in the picture. So they're asking us if we're interested. And if they make it and deliver the marker, if the town could install it at the site, is, I believe, the ask, just to clarify. So they're gonna make it with the Ag Society, the Confluence School, but it's Ag Society, and then if we could just drill the holes and mount the sign. And it will be at the E. Cole Elementary that's been there for 100 years. Councillor Chappelle.
We went on a hunt looking for the original school site. We went on a hunt looking for the original school site here in Rocky Mountain House, and we originally thought it was where the Home Hardware was at the top of Main Street that had burnt down way back
really?
when. We're having a hard time to 100% find the original school site. We're thinking now that it's where the Masonic Hall is, or was, maybe there. But anyway, which is across from the Legion and up the hill a bit.
Okay.
The school, the Rocky East site as it is now was a one-room classroom, and it was built onto on that site over the years as more kids came into town. So that we know for sure, but to determine the exact site has been a bit of a gong show. So about 3 weeks ago, I got some information from an old school teacher who thought that he knew where the site was. So I think the sign we can put up, hopefully we can put it up through staff. But I think the thing will be is 100% where we're going to locate it at this point.
So, Mr. Kraus, just before we move forward in discussions, is it possible we have staff that could, drill a hole and put cork or concrete?
No, administration staff can install
Yeah.
the sign if council approves it. So
Yeah.
they're looking for it to be on municipal property, so I guess that.
Also-
We'll see where that is, I guess. So-
Yeah. Does anybody else have any questions or comments about this signage? Councillor Chappelle.
I'll make the motion that we send a letter to the Rocky Mountain House Ag Society indicating that we will, upon delivery of the sign and at the location it's agreed to between both our town administration and themselves, that we'd resurrect? Install the sign at the town's cost.
Does anybody have any questions or comments on that motion? Seeing none, I'll call that to a vote. All in favor of the motion? And any opposed? And that's none, and that's carried. So that concludes 9.1. So 9.2, Blue Jeans event from Cape. So it's June 12th, 9:30 a.m. to 3:30 p.m. It's they have speakers and they have a tour. I'm guessing they're just asking if anybody would like to attend this event. Does that sound about right? Have anybody have any questions or comments about this item? We're Cape members, so we have no problem attending. It's part of our thing, but is anybody wanting to attend this at this time? No. So could I just have a motion for,
Okay. I'll just make a motion to
Thank
accept
you.
for information, the CAPE letter.
okay, thank you very much. So if there's any questions or comments on that, we can always revisit that, but, at a later date, but if we're fine with the motion. Seeing no questions or comments, I'll call that to a vote. All in favor of that motion? And that's carried, so that completes 9.2. 9.3, we have a letter from a resident. And so this is one of those anomaly properties within the town limits. I think we have 3 or 4 different ones, not just from this resident. Because I've had a few other calls. So the discussion is, Mr. Kraus, did you want to actually maybe talk about it? Because it's all about utilities
Yep, no,
and
thank-
waiving fees and,
Yeah, no, thank you, Your Worship. I mean, we've obviously been in contact with this resident, because there's actually 3 homes down the long driveway. I mean, we have offered them to keep their totes or bins at the end of the driveway, and they can, if they're driving their garbage to the eco center anyway, they can just drive to the end of the driveway, put them in their tote, and we could pick it up on the street there. So that's what we've offered to them. But I think they're looking for something more from council here.
so we did have one other, because the bylaw says it has to be behind your, or on your, like at your house. Well, where's Laura? Laura, you and I looked into that a while ago. The bins are supposed to be kept behind the front corner of your house or on your front. What's the bylaw say for that?
I believe it's behind the frontage of your house. But I
Yeah.
one that
Yeah.
we tested.
And I don't think that's the issue, I mean, because we
No,
would allow them to.
but that's what we said to other people, is to, don't worry about the bylaw, we'll relax it for you because you have a long driveway. And that's how we handled the other,
Yeah.
is that not how we handled the,
No.
on 60th?
On
Way?
60th Street, yeah, for one of the residents that has a long driveway that curves in, so, yeah.
And the only reason I bring that up is so that we make the same decision to every resident. We say this to one guy and something else to a different guy. It's the same situation. Counselor Chappelle.
Your Worship, to Mr. Kraus, so this one on 60th Street, what did we do there?
We allow them to keep it at the end of their driveway, but it's also concealed because it's trees and bushes
Oh, I
and
see,
stuff.
okay.
Yeah.
Do you have a recommendation with this letter, this ask that we have in front of us today?
I think administration has provided the resident with like a suitable solution to it, versus getting into the area of just waiving fees because of a long driveway or that's a property you selected to live, or, I mean, this is an anomaly because, I mean, we're talking, the one lot is several acres in size. So.
So the solution that you provided is to keep your bins at the end of the
Driveway, yeah.
without having a problem with the bylaw that says it has to be up near the house. That answers your question, right? So what we did for the other resident on 60th, up by the, it's like one of the last houses before it becomes a subdivision, right? Was to say, and so that would be the solution here, is that, the solution is that we'll do nothing but you just keep your bins at the street end of the driveway. Counselor Chappelle.
Your Worship, I would be, I think in this case, I read the letter and he's saying if I got it loaded, I can get rid of it myself. I think we should just waive the fee and go about doing it ever how the resident wants to do it there. It's tight in there. I just think, I understand what he's saying and I think we should just go ahead with that and give him what he's looking for.
Ty.
Go ahead,
I'm gonna go
Counselor.
to the.
Go ahead, Counselor
Counselor Musker.
Oh, thank you, Your Worship. To Mr. Kraus, I'm wondering if we do proceed with waiving this, do you anticipate any unintended consequences?
I'm looking over at Mr. Shanks and see, because I'm sure he deals with
These questions.
these questions. Did you want to speak on it, Mr. Shanks?
Good morning. Yeah, I think if we waive the fees for this, we're gonna have more residents coming forward. There are, more residents in town that are similar to this situation. We have one in McNutt subdivision that, has a long driveway. They deal with it on their own. I think we've given them, the right choice, which is to have their containers at the end of the driveway. Like Mr. Kraus stated, you know, they're loading it up anyways. Take it out, put it in the container and have it picked up. It's not an issue. To have to waive the fees for them, I don't think we should do that.
Councillor Phillips?
Yeah, I think that the solution that was offered by administration is a reasonable solution. I think when we start doing exceptions to whether it's utilities or something else, once we start making exceptions, it becomes, it sometimes can become where we have a lot of these because there's a lot of people that feel they have exceptions. So I would be fine with just having what administration had said and not waiving the fees.
So I have a question, Mr. Sinks, have you had problems? I know there was a bear in the ditch around that area. And so I'm just wondering if it's a concern with bins and garbage when there's a bear seen. Is there an issue to anybody, like, he's mentioning safety and convenience for the seniors that live there? I'm questioning if we've had any issues with bears and bins in that area yet.
Yes, but we have that all throughout the town. This is part of living close to the West Country. The animals are gonna come in regardless, whether the garbage is there or not. The garbage they're in containers. You know, we tell you what you can and can't put in containers to kind of mitigate that. Has it been a real issue? No, it hasn't. So, I don't see why it'd be any different for them to bring their garbage from their resident out to the containers. No different than all of the other residents within that area anyways.
I'm not disputing
Yep,
that.
yep,
I'm just asking as many questions as I can so that I can make the best decision. Mr. Kraus, is it even possible to remove, like, I know we've done it for some commercial buildings, but is it a thing where we can choose certain residences and remove that when we run our utilities?
I mean, council can, by resolution.
I'm asking if it's physically possible, administration-wise. How much of a problem is it to have to be like an extra cost? Because every week she has to go and say, these 5 places don't get bills?
Well-
Or can it be programmed in?
I'm sure it could be programmed in. I would have to, I'm not a utility clerk, so I don't work with the software. But there's still gonna be it's not a waiving of the entire fees, because there's still a recycling fee in there. And organics fee in there, so is it just waste? I mean, they still can access the Eco Center for recycling fee with no charge at the gate. So there wouldn't be elimination of the entire fee.
Okay. Councillor Chappelle, did you have a question?
Yes, I do, Your Worship, if I can. So, question is, how many other properties in Rocky don't pay utility bills? And people like multi-residential properties have to provide their own garbage, an apartment building, Killian Trailer Park, places like that. What constitutes the difference between 3 residents and a multi-unit property? Do we have a designation between that? And could this fall into the jurisdiction of a multi-unit property where they have to deal with their own garbage? So 3 questions there. How many properties are not paying utilities right now? Because I go through my head and do an inventory of outlying properties around the perimeter of Rocky Mountain House, and there's some that the garbage truck doesn't even go to. So I guess the question is he really asking for something that's way out to lunch? Let me give those questions to you if I could, Mr. Shanks.
Yeah, that could, I mean, Well, I mean, this isn't a multi-family unit. These are actually 3 subdivided lots at the end of a long driveway that's owned by the same family. So under the bylaw, then, these are single-family units that pay for garbage or recycling and organics pickup. So you wouldn't fit into a multi-family
Criteria.
criteria under the bylaw.
So back to the other question is, because now I'm curious, how many other houses are we not doing garbage pickup at because of weird situations?
Off the top of my head, I could not tell you, but there are a couple that I can tell you about. So Action Towing Road, right at the very end, no different. Their property line ends at the beginning of their driveway, and they still deal with it. And there's 2 residents at the end of that driveway, and that's a long driveway.
And so
to get in
they
there.
have bins there,
Yes.
and they have to pay garbage there?
Yep.
And deal with the bins at that, I know who lives there, so.
Yep.
I just couldn't remember what he told me about it. Okay. So if we're gonna make a call to be consistent and fair across the community, my interpretation is that the solution that council's come up with, or administration's come up with, that they put the bins at the end of the driveway and they leave them there and they deal with it, because that's what we've told the other however number of people that we can think of at the time. That's the answer that we gave them in order to have a consistent and fair and similar answer.
Yes.
Does that sound fair? Councillor Hutchinson, did you have a question?
No, thank you. I was just going to make the same comment that you did, that I would not be in favor of waiving a fee, because that would be a can of worms just opened up. I think we should be consistent, and as Mayor Bache said, this is what is happening right now. I feel comfortable with that. I did want to address whether admin, when speaking with this resident, discussed the $6 per bag fee that's in his letters, where it's only $3 at the Eco Center, and made sure that he's aware of that it's only $3 and paying $6. Somebody's ripping him off.
Yeah, we haven't talked to him about the amounts. He knows what the amounts are. I've spoken to Mr. Quinn a few times on the phone. I did mention to him that the contractor responsible to pick up the bins and whatnot, he is more than comfortable driving in on his driveway. That's where that little comment comes from. But as far as the amounts, we'll make sure he's aware it's $3 a bag for whatever he's bringing in.
So, like with that statement, he would put the bins closer to the house and allow the garbage guy to come down his driveway and pick it up?
He could.
Is that what he's asking for?
No, he just wants the fees removed, period. He doesn't want the containers near his house or at the end of his driveway.
Okay.
He wants to be able to take the
On the day he feels like
waste
it.
on his own when he wants and just pay the fee there versus doing it at home.
Does anybody else have any other questions or comments? So rather than accepting for information, I think we should just reply with a nice letter saying that the decision was made to make it consistent as what we've done for the other residences with similar situations. You know, as just a nice customer service, that's, and leave it as what administration has already told him. Does anybody feel anything differently than that? Everybody feels okay with that, so I can make that motion now? I'll make that motion that we reply to this resident that unfortunately we're trying to keep all decisions consistent across with other residents, and that there is a number of similar situations we've handled in the same manner, and that that's our decision, that we can't waive the fees at this time, or period, we don't have to say at that time. All in favor of that motion? Any opposed? Okay, and so that's carried. So the next order of business is for Museum Day invite, yes. Saturday, May 25th, from 10 to 3. So this is just an official invitation. Councillor Chappelle.
Thank you, Your Worship. I won't be here that day, and so if someone else can be a replacement for me, I'd most certainly appreciate that.
Is anybody available else to go? I'm not sure about my availability. Unfortunately, I didn't get it till this morning, and I just don't know where I'm at. Councillor Musker?
Thank you.
They've
Your
already
Worship,
asked.
I will be attending, so.
Yeah, yeah. Does anybody else want to go for Councillor Chappelle at this time? Councillor Hutchinson?
At this time, I could attend, but again, not having my schedule that far in advance, it's hard to say. So, do we need to respond to the museum, or are they just inviting us at this time? I think it's just an invite, so,
Well, we could just,
yeah.
we can, my suggestion is we accept for information at this time, and just everybody's aware that Councillor Chappelle is not able to attend and will reply, and if someone else would like to go or could go and bring greetings, otherwise, Councillor Musker, you're the one. All in favor of accepting for information, I'll call that to a vote. Thank you, Councillor Caprero, and no opposed, and that's carried. Moving forward in the agenda, we're at 9.5. So the item is Seniors Day Week. Seniors Day Week. And the government of Alberta has dedicated the first week of June to honor and recognize seniors for their invaluable contributions to our province, June 3rd to 9th. And I think the only ask is to make a declaration. Is that correct? Yes? Does anybody have any questions or comments about Seniors Week? None? Did somebody want to make a motion?
Yeah, I'll be happy to make a motion that the town of Rocky Mountain House declare June 3rd to 9th Seniors Week.
Thank you very much. I just have a quick question for Laura. So we had a customer at Coffee of the Councillor ask about Seniors Week. Is there some clarification about ages for this or whatever? Yeah?
I would have to have a look.
Okay.
You and I did have that discussion following your coffee with the councillor.
Yeah.
If I recall correctly, he was questioning the differences of the rates at our facilities. We have a senior 75 plus is free, but a senior rate is 60, but seniors defined by the province is over 65.
Over
Is that-
65.
I don't, I don't know for sure. I would
Oh.
like to double check. on
Okay.
that. So I'm not sure what your question is.
I guess if we just had,
You wanted to ensure that our rates aligned with the
I just
provincial
wanted
definition of
to
senior?
say what ages that would be, but I guess that we don't have to do that at this time, so. Councillor Phillips?
I think if someone wants to identify as a senior and they believe their age has reached that, then they should be celebrating
Okay.
whatever age they identify as a senior at.
Perfect. So, any further discussion on this? I got lost in what I was doing. And so, seeing no further discussion, I'll call out to a vote. All in favor of the motion from Councillor Phillips for the declaration of June 3rd to 9th? And no opposed, and that's carried. Sorry about that. So, the 33rd Annual Emerald Awards invite. Mr. Kraus, do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, so, yeah, sure, your mayor. So the mayor has been invited to attend this event, and the Emerald Awards are for recognition of innovative environmental projects, and there's a company just west of us, or east of us, sorry, and the name is eluding me, that's being presented or is nominated for award. So they have asked council if the mayor would like to attend, to provide a greeting in support of this firm being nominated for the award.
Counselor Chappelle.
I'd make a motion, Your Worship, if you're available to go to this function, I would make a motion that you attend this function on behalf of the town of Rocky Mountain House and bring greetings.
Okay. I just don't have my calendar with me, so I will check with my schedule. Counselor Hutchinson, I believe FCM is
I
like
was-
that day or the day before, or the day after.
I was just gonna say
So I
that's
just
the
need to
night.
triple, double check what we have going on.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say, but I also am looking at the invite, and it's talking about a digital greeting from the town. It's not asking for a greeting from somebody in person, but done through digital means, so would we need a motion to have communications design something for the digital greeting?
It just says we're opportunity to share a written greeting in our digital program along with a photo.
Is that something council feels that we would like to do? So if that's the case, we don't have a motion on the table yet, do we?
We do, I have a motion on the
okay.
table,
Oh,
but
wait, then.
I would reword that motion that we would
Amend.
amend my motion to address, as you've suggested, Councillor Hutchinson, that we do a written,
Greeting.
digital, written greeting from the town, from the mayor.
That sounds good. So the amended motion is that we send regrets or, and submit a written greeting, and photo, for the program. Any further discussion on this agenda item?
It does say that you can get 2 free tickets as well, so if you do attend,
Yeah,
Is it transferable?
yeah, so the deadline for an attendee is May 10th for us to RSVP. So if council
That's
wants
tomorrow.
to,
Is that yesterday? Okay, sorry. Friday. I told you I didn't have my calendar on me. Does anybody want to go? In person? It is during FCM, but it's in Calgary.
Gary, yeah.
So, okay, so we'll go back to the motion on the table. And is there any other further questions on the motion at the table that we send electronic greetings on behalf of the town of Rocky Mountain House? Okay, seeing none, no further discussion, I will call that to a vote. All in favor of the motion? Any opposed? And that's carried. So moving forward in the agenda, we have 9.7, the Summer Municipal Leaders Caucus. And I'm available and I'm planning on attending on June 27th to the town of Innisfail. Is there any other discussion on this agenda item? Counselor Phillips?
Is this something that's open to all of council, or?
Well, generally, it's a leadership caucus, so anybody can go, just like you guys went to the other one. But generally, it's just the mayor and CAO, or deputy mayor and CAO, or deputy mayor and mayor. You can go or not go, but that's what it's generally, I've experienced, but it's up to you guys, whatever you wanna do.
If council's acceptable, I would be willing to go as well, but that would be a council decision.
So, Councilor Phillips, do you know where you are in your budget?
Not off the top of my head, no.
Because I know that Counselor Hutchinson is getting close to her because of all the conferences and stuff, so that's my only caution, is that I don't want you to attend something and then in the future there would be a bigger conference and you'd be tight on your things, so it's up to you, but I haven't seen that number lately, like we haven't got our quarterly ones, but when we did the quarterly ones, it was getting, so I'm just asking if you're keeping track. Counselor Chappelle.
I'd so make a motion that those wishing to attend I'm thinking the Innisfail one is the closest, that they be allowed to go. And it'll be determined, and the administration send out a request for those who wishing to go, and that they could reply back in order to get registration completed for the attendees who wish to go.
Perfect. So that, with that resolution on the table, or, yes. Is it Friday yet? Any questions or comments on that motion? Seeing none, I'll call that to vote. All in favor of the motion on the table? Any opposed? And that's carried. Thank you very much. Community grant application for Farrier Community Association. Mr. Kraus, did you want to talk about, or should I put that to Ms. Breeze, about the granting?
Thank you, Your Worship, Council. So we do have a funding request from the Farrier Association. So going through the actual grant policy, the recommendation is for mostly in-town events, but this doesn't exclude that they can have an event outside of the limits. Here, so they are asking for $500 to be put towards a barbecue, and they're hosting an event at the Farrier Hall, and of course all of Rocky Mountain House residents are invited to that. So under the policy, it does fit.
Does anybody have any questions or comments about this community grant application? Would anybody like to make a motion? Councillor Hutchinson.
Although it is a little bit of an unusual request given their location, I do think that it's important because they are so close to town and they do put on events such as their theater group and things that do, take in more than just their residents, that I would be putting a motion forward to grant my computer's not opening, the Farrier Community Hall, the $500 fee, grant that they're asking for.
Farrier doesn't have a play group, do they? It's just Frisco Hall and Everdale, right? Farrier's got a hockey rink. Don't know? Doesn't matter. Any questions or comments about the motion on the table to grant? Is that where we're going? We're granting the grant? Councillor Chappelle?
I'm torn. I'm torn for the fact that it's out of town, and are we opening it up to a whole bunch of other things that are happening out of town? And I'm just wondering if possibly we need not to write our policy to reflect parameters as to where we can, how far out of town we can go. Do we do it, not that if the Nordig Community Group came along, would we say yes or no to them? How far out do we go? The county sponsors all their rural communities, community groups. I'm having a difficult time. I totally understand, Councillor Hutchinson, where you're at. It's only $500, but the fear I have is where's the next one come from? So I'm struggling, and I hear the motion on the floor, but I'm just not 100% sure. I'd like to hear other councillors' opinions on this.
See Councillor Phillips and then Councillor Moosker.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm kind of on the same fence as Councillor Schipholt. I see the benefits, but I also see that this isn't an application coming from something inside the town of Rocky Mountain House, so I am torn by this one as well, more on the side that of not in favor.
Councillor Moosker?
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. I'm with you guys. And my problem's not with the ask, my problem is with the policy maybe. It seems to be vague and open to interpretation. And so the words vague and open to interpretation make me very nervous when I'm spending other people's money. So later on, I think I'll be dealing with that in notices of motion. But yeah, I just wanted to make that comment.
Okay, so we do have a motion on the table, and Counselor Hutchinson, your light is still on.
I can't hear anything right now.
Sorry, I shut it off when everyone's lights were on. We have a motion on the table to grant the $500 grant from Counselor Hutchinson. So we're going to call that to a vote. All in favor of the motion on the table? And those opposed? And that is defeated, sorry. That is defeated. Thank you very much. Moving forward in the agenda then. We have a community application grant for Friends of Lochern. Ms. Breeze, did you want to just go over that for us as well, please?
Yes, Your Honor. So this one's very similar, except for this one is in town. So they're asking for $500 to fund for a barbecue and another $500 for facility rentals because they are hosting a kind of a huge community event at, I believe it's at the Lusopit they have it booked for. So they're doing a bunch of different activities, fitness classes. They're having little things set up for the kids like glitter tattoos. They want to run a little market, silent auction. So numerous different activities is what they're planning to do with this one.
So, I'll just step in. I think this is a great idea. I know that they're working really hard to put in a park. I don't know if it says that. Oh, no. This is Friends of Lochern. Yeah, a new playground at Lochern Elementary School. Anyways, so it fits our criteria more so than Ferrier. Anybody else have any other comments, or would anyone like to make a motion? Counselor
Yeah.
Phillips?
I completely agree with you on this one. I'd like to make a motion that we approve the grant of $500 in cash and $500 in facility rentals to the Friends of Lochern Fundraising Society.
Thank you very much. So with a motion on the table, do we have any other questions or comments on that motion? Seeing none, I'll call that to a vote. All in favor of the motion? And any opposed? And that motion is now carried. So we have an additional item added to our agenda, 9.10. It's the 2024 Alberta municipalities, and we were given the sheet. And Councillor Caprero, it would be in your email, the awards, 2024 awards dedicated senior team. If you need, because you didn't get a hand copy. So, why don't we start with Councillor Hutchinson?
Thank you. So once again, the Alberta municipalities have put forward their nomination process for all of their awards. This one, I've been waiting for it to come, or to have been opened, but I had actually received an email from a resident that was very, very happy with our senior team and felt she wanted to pass it on to ensure that it would be something that we would be looking into. I am very proud of our, not just our senior team, the entire team that makes this municipality function. And so having said that, I was wanting to put forward a motion to nominate our senior team for the Alberta Municipalities 2024 award.
So I will defer to Councillor Chappelle.
I totally understand where you're at. My fear right now is we're short an employee in the legislative wing of our operation, and I'm just fearful about this takes a lot of man hours to complete. I'm, as much as I appreciate it, I'm not sure it's fair to our employee at this time, and I'm just concerned. I don't think we should do overload. I think it's great that we would do it. I just am concerned about where we're at staff-wise. I think we need to be understanding of that. And it's great to throw stuff on the staff to do, but in this case, I just question whether, if it's a reasonable ask on our behalf as council.
Councillor Hutchinson.
Thank you. And that's why I had added it to today's menu, no, agenda, so that we do have, the deadline is June 14th. So it does give enough time, if it was accepted today, to be able to put things together. And I don't think it's just an application form that is put on one member only. I would assume it would be kind of a tag team thing where if, you know, we get the names nominated down, and then some of the other categories that would be filled out could be feedback and coming from other members. Example, finance over to commenting about Ledge and what they do really well, but Ledge, so it would be spread out over the entire team. But I just feel that it's a great opportunity to recognize the staff that we do have.
Councillor Musker? Yeah, I'm sorry, did you?
Oh, yeah, I did.
I'm sorry.
I was still.
Actually, I apologize. I did not see Councillor Ald's light on. I did see you move to your light. I apologize. Councillor Ald.
I agree with Councillor Hutchinson. So many times we put on to administration mundane, could be frivolous, could be just time-consuming projects. And that's one of the reasons why they, I think, are very deserving of getting recognized for what they do. So I would be in 100% support of this.
Thank you. Now I'll go to Councillor Musker.
Thank you, Your Worship. I agree too. It would be great, but could Mr. Crowe speak to the logistics of this?
Not concerned.
Not
We'll
concerned.
have to work.
Fantastic, thank you.
So, did you have a different opinion?
No, just.
Okay, so then I'll go.
Okay.
I have a different opinion.
Point of order. If council wants to speak on something, they're allowed to speak.
I'll let him go next. I'm allowed to reply to, you guys all said the exact same thing, right? And so, you all agreed, exact same way.
Regardless of whether we agree or not.
Would you like to chair the meeting? Then you'll have to run for mayor.
You still have to follow policy and procedure. Doesn't matter whether you're chairing the meeting or not.
Am I allowed to speak when I'm chairing the meeting?
You are a member of council, you're allowed to speak.
Thank you, Councillor Ald, for
But
giving me
because he
permission to
has-
speak while I'm chairing the meeting.
Doesn't matter whether they have the same opinion or not.
Well, when you run for mayor, then you can talk to all the other mayors in Alberta and see how they run a meeting. I'm still allowed to say what I want. I'd like to take a 5-minute recess. Thank you very much. So, what I wanted to say was, I don't think administration should do this application. I think if we think administration is doing a good job, then we fill out all the application. Because I feel that administration's time should be spent on what they do best. And I'd like to free up their time. And if we would like to go forward with this, my suggestion is that we fill out the application. And then I believe Councillor Phillips, you had a comment.
Thank you. I decline on my comment now. Thank you.
Councillor Musker, did I see your light on? No? Okay. Are there any further questions or comments on this agenda item?
Is there a motion on the table right now?
I believe that Councillor Hutchinson did a motion to start with that we, is that correct, Councillor Hutchinson?
Yes, I had put forward the motion that I would like to nominate our senior team for the 2024 Alberta Municipalities Awards.
Councillor
Thank you.
Councillor Caprero, did you have a comment or?
No, I just was hoping to hear it again before we voted, that's all. I'm good.
Okay, so if there's no further questions or comments about the motion on the table, I'll call that to a vote. All in favor of the motion? And those opposed? And that's carried. So moving forward in the agenda, now we have correspondence for information. Is there anything from item 10.5 on that we would like brought out of or discussed? Seeing none, Councillor Chappelle, did you
Also
want?
move that we accept the correspondence 10.1 to 10.5, 10.6 as information.
Thank you very much. No questions or comments on that motion. I'll call that to vote. All in favor of the motion on the table? And any opposed? And that's carried. Thank you very much. So moving forward in the agenda then, we are at 11 for the action list. Mr. Kraus.
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. So just going through the action list for the Alberta Munis resolution, we're still seeking a seconder for that. We've had 2 decline, but I think we have 1 more inquiry out and 2 more municipalities that we're going to reach out to.
Yes, sorry, just to talk about that, Trina Jones from the Mayor of Legal and Krista Gardner, who was here yesterday, both of those municipalities had expressed interest in.
Yeah, and we're reaching out to them.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And all, yes, you got it right. I thought I said, Mr. Kraus?
Okay, so the next one is water response plan. That is being drafted, and we'll have that ready for the June 11th GPC. Costs for a long-term strategy plan, strategic plan. We were bringing that forward on May 21st, so we were gathering those costs. The McNutt subdivision was dealt with today with council, so that is done for now. School meeting discussion, and that was that was about the value-added discussion, so I'll have to, that happened, I think Mayor and Mr. Schwader was at those meetings. So I don't know if the Mayor, you're bringing just a report back to council, or admin, you want admin to bring back a report on those discussions?
So I can just update you that there's nothing further for us to do at this time. It was just being part of the discussion, and so we know what's going on. They will make the final decision at the school board level, and then we'll do the next steps following that.
Wildrose trustee meeting, that has been sent, that request has been sent to Wildrose School Division, and I believe they're actually discussing today. They have a board meeting today, and that was the letter concerning mental health in schools and so forth, and the response from the minister. And then the next one, the Mayor, that has been completed. A package has been delivered for them to take to India. And then the next one is the energy efficient grant and also the municipal energy manager, and we're bringing a report next week to council on those two. And then the final one, it's council's just waiting for mid-sized towns mayor's caucus terms of reference to come back whenever that group finalizes it. So.
The last meeting was council, and I haven't had any further. Does anybody have any questions about the action list for today? Would somebody like to make a motion? Counselor, oh, sorry. Go ahead, Counselor. I just thought maybe Counselor Cabrera wanted to make a motion today at some point, but Counselor Shipple, I'll take your motion.
Okay, I'll make the motion. We accept the action list dated May 7th as information.
Thank you very much. If there's no further questions or comments on that motion, I'll call that to a vote. All in favor of that motion? And that's carried. Do we have any administrative inquiries today? You just shut it off. Counselor Shipple, I know you had one.
Thank you, Your Worship. I have one about the park at 55th Street, 57th Avenue, I believe it is. It's the park across from Dr. Kirstein's house. There was a couple years ago a light standard put in there and power put in there. But the meter's never been put on there and the light has never worked. Everything is there, but it's not working. And it's been 2 years like that, and it's by a basketball court. Some of the citizens are saying why did you go through all the work of putting it in there, but it's not working? So.
Follow up on that, but I'll get back to council on that. It was a project, I believe Ford has put it in, but we'll follow up on that.
Okay. Provincial fines today, we talked about provincial fines being $20,000 compared to $7,700 in the previous budget. And the question I had on that was if we could get information as to why the variance, and if it was CPOs versus RCMP revenues for the town of Rocky Mountain House. I think we got some of the answers just in general discussion, but we can get that.
Okay. Yeah, you can provide council with that information.
Appreciate that. Thank you very much. Mr. West, that's all I have for you. Thank you very much.
So I attended rec board meeting the other day, and I'd like to know specifically what is the policy on agriculture events in the arena. It's my understanding that the 4-H club wanted to use the arena for their show and sale, which would be better for the community. And they are now, it's my understanding they weren't allowed, or there was some frustration at the meeting and unclarity, and I just want to know what the actual policy is about ag events at the arena.
Good morning, Your Worship and Council. We do not have a policy per se that speaks to ag events, and the decision not to allow that was based on discussions with my operators and the amount of cleanup that's required and the ongoing maintenance that happens after an ag event. I did reach out to some of my predecessors about when they stopped allowing ag events in the arena, because at one point they did. Goes back to 2013, the decision was made at that time to no longer bring in the dirt and allow that. Speaking with Mr. Shanks, and his memory back to that time was about when they made or built the outdoor rink. They used to store dirt in there, and then since that time, they've no longer allowed that, and it was for the same reasons as that you're bringing dirt in, the dirt gets underneath the boards. When you're putting in ice in, there's no way of getting all that dirt out. It gets up into the rafters, into the lights, and And throughout the year, a puck will hit a light and you get dirt coming down. It's just that ongoing. And unfortunately, we don't, it's ongoing maintenance. And so the recommendation from my staff in going that way and talking with other people in the industry, in positions in other communities, some do, some don't. They're across the board, the discussion is, those of us that do, we hate it because of the amount of work that is ongoing after. You can take the dirt out, but you never get the dirt out, right? And so that was the decision. Some communities do, some don't. And so that was the direction, and the reason why we made that decision.
So there's no policy against it, it was just an administrative decision because it requires so much extra work when they have events like that? But there's
Correct.
never been put anything in a policy in the 10 years that we haven't done it.
Not since I've been here, no.
So I just feel that supporting 4-H and food security in our community, which is a big part, we share that facility. Have we made any moves towards building an egg building so that we could do a 4-H sale? Or like Eckville had a Bullarama on Friday night. Caroline's having the show and sale the weekend after the long weekend. Rimby built an egg building. Now, our agricultural society, because they no longer have the lease to the land, but does the town of Rocky Mountain House have any plans on building an egg building so that we can promote agriculture in our community, which is, I think, going to be important in the future for food security? Do we have any plans?
When the Recreation Master Plan was done in 2017, one of the items itemized in there was the need for an ag events center.
So have we moved forward with anything on that?
Not at this point, no.
Is it still in the matrix? Where is it in the matrix?
It ranked very low in the priorities when we did the matrix scoring the last time we did the review in 2021.
So for the cost of cleaning up the arena versus building a new ag center, what do you think that looks like? Is it just not possible to clean at all? Like, should we charge more? I just really feel strongly that we should be able to promote ag-type events in our community.
I can't predict right now what that cost would be at this point.
Administration would have to take that back, and we're almost getting into the realm where it's not an administrative inquiry anymore, but more of a discussion on council's side of what services to provide and what those services would cost. So.
Yeah, well, I'm just clarifying because I've had a lot of people ask me about it and have concerns about it. So I just wanted to make sure I asked the question. That's all I had. Does anybody else have any administrative inquiries? Councillor Hutchinson, your light was on.
I was just gonna comment, I thought you still were commenting on the issue. I mean, if it's up to council, if we choose to go forward with an ag building or not, it would be a bigger conversation that would happen at service level review. It's not staff having any.
So is this an administrative inquiry that you're having right now?
No, it is not. I am
It's a
commenting
comment about
on
my
your
comment?
comment, which I
Okay.
believe I have the opportunity to
So can
reply
we
to
move
comments.
forward with the agenda?
Yes.
Do we have any notices of motion today? Councillor Mosker.
Thank you, Your Worship. This is my first notice of motion. I hope I don't completely botch it.
You're going to be great.
Yeah, thank you. It's in regards to our community grant policy and the situation we ran into with the Farrier Community Association. My notice of motion would be that administration improve the clarity of section 5.4, including but not limited to geographical boundaries. I think the criteria for benefits needs to be measurable rather than anecdotal. Is that how'd I do?
I think that's great. So we need to set a timeline of when you'd like to review that policy and that we just want to review it. Is that correct, Mr. Kraus?
Yeah, no, so Your Worship, this is a notice of motion. So this motion will be on council's next agenda to discuss whether council wants to amend the policy.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Krausfer, and thank you for your notice of motion. Do we have any other notices of motion? Councillor Phillips.
Yes, thank you. So I'd like to make a notice of motion that we bring forth to the next council meeting discussion on RCMP complement, in specific more the federal side of the RCMP complement. At the AAPG conference that I was at in Lethbridge last week, I had some one-on-one time with the former RCMP K Division commander, and there was some suggestions and ideas that were brought forth from him and from the AAPG president, and I think it's worthy of having some discussion on it. And I did send an email to council with what some of those suggestions were, so at least everybody has a chance to look at it.
Thank you very much for your notice of motion. Do we have any further notices of motion today? Okay, so for the closed session, Mr. Kraus, would you like a recess first to clear the council chamber? Maybe we'll just take like a 2-minute recess so that anybody that's not required for the next thing. So we'll just have just a quick 2-minute recess. Councillor Caprero, can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Thank you. So, thank you very much. Well, welcome back to the Town of Rocky Mountain House. We have some important agenda items, 14.2 and 14.3, that we need to discuss in closed session, so I'm looking for a motion to enter closed session. Councillor
I
Chappelle.
also make a motion, we enter closed session.
Thank you very much. So, all in favor of that, if there's no further discussion, if there's no further discussion, I'll call that to a vote. All in favor of that motion? Any opposed? And that's none, and that's carried. So we'll now go into closed session. Yes, we are. Thank you very much. So we've just exited closed session, and following that, we have two motions that Councillor Phillips will start with the first one.
Yes, the first motion, I'd like to make a motion that council approve the extension of the existing audit contract with Baker Tilly for the 2024 fiscal year.
Thank you very much. It's no problem with the live stream, right? Okay, so thank you very much for your motion, Councillor. If there's no further discussion on that motion, and seeing none, I'll call that to a vote. All in favor of the motion? And that's carried. And so I'll turn to Councillor Phillips for the second motion.
Yes, I also make a motion that council accepts the CAO council dialogue for information.
Thank you very much. If there's no further questions or comments on that motion, I'll call that to a vote. All in favor of that motion? And that's carried, no opposed. And so that concludes our meeting for today. Meeting adjourned.
Bye, everybody.